The evaluation and scoring of subjective sport has been an intense topic of debate for literal decades. Unlike, say, track and field, basketball, or swimming, there is no stopwatch, no time clock, no purely objective way to determine the winner. Politics are often involved, which is often akin to throwing gasoline on an already raging wildfire. Today we take a deep dive into one of the most controversial results in the history of women's artistic gymnastics, the highly contentious and polarizing all-around final at the 1991 World Championships. The city of Indianapolis was selected to host 1991 Worlds, only the second time during modern history the sport's biggest stage was to be contested on American soil. And a lot had changed in the 12 years since the 1979 Worlds in Fort Worth, the first time the United States hosted the World Gymnastics Championships.
Jim McKay, and it's a big week here, not only because it's the first time that the championships have come to Fort Worth, it is in fact the first time they've been held in the United States or anywhere outside Europe.
In 1981, Bela Karolyi, the ebullient personality who had famously coached Nadia Comaneci to 7 perfect tens and the Olympic all-around title at the 76 Games in Montreal, had defected from Romania and wound up in Texas, where he had quickly built a dynasty and become a larger-than-life and controversial figure in U.S. gymnastics. In a span of less than 5 years in his adopted homeland, he had produced the first ever American to win the Olympics in Mary Lou Retton. This was perhaps the defining moment in USA gymnastics up to this point. Mary Lou's victory went on to inspire countless little American girls to take up the sport. Bela was boisterous, unapologetic, and relentless when it came to achieving success. Despite making many enemies during his rise to the top, his reputation for creating champions had earned him a lot of respect and given him leeway. Many turned a blind eye to some of his more questionable tactics and methods. Karolyi had a lot of pull politically, which would become very apparent during these World Championships in Indianapolis. He had basically been allowed to handpick the American team here, with Sandy Woolsey and Liz Crandall pushed to the wayside despite their impressive results at the trials for this event. In fact, 5 of the 6 American gymnasts on the team were either coached by Karolyi personally or by his protege, Rick Newman. Karolyi was the king of U.S. gymnastics in 1991, and he was not shy about this fact. To take a quote out of the Miley Cyrus songbook, Bela cannot be tamed. The control given to him was almost unprecedented for a federation desperate to be a world contender alongside the Soviets and Romanians. And it appeared to pay off, with the American team narrowly winning the silver medal in the team event ahead of the Romanians, the first ever world team medal for the USA in the history of the sport. That controversial result will be a tale for another day. For this video, I want to take a look at the performances of the top 5 finishers in the all-around event in ascending order of placement. First up is Odessa's Painted Bird, Tatiana Gutsu from the Soviet Union, who finished 5th with a 39.636. Of the top 5, Gutsu had by far the most difficult routines. In fact, she had so much difficulty that she watered down the following season and still had more than enough content to become Olympic all-around champion. When it comes to scoring this event, I highly recommend my video where I re-scored the 1989 World Championships. It's the same code of points, for the most part the same things and subjective biases were going on, so I will link to that video up here. That should give you a baseline of where I am going from. I will do my best to point out the strengths and weaknesses of each exercise and how I come to my final score. We are going to go in the order that the gymnasts competed on that day, and Gutsu started on floor exercise. Gutsu is wearing this white Leo, which j'adore. The first thing you'll notice is that she really cleaned up her polish prior to the Olympic season, but this year she had so much difficulty. Whip through the double layout. Very well done. She was the first gymnast ever to compete a whip to double layout. She also had about 5 or 6 different floor routines in 1991. The choreographers really were trying to give her a star vehicle. Middle pass, tuck double back, well done. Beautifully controlled double turn. You can see that the musicality is there. She does hear her music. It's a nice switch leap. And optional, she dismounted with a double layout. Here she plays it safe. Pikes full in. Perfect. Very strong opening. Obviously, the strength for me when it comes to Gutsu's floor are the risk and originality, both of which were highlighted in the code of points. That mount, very, very original and very, very difficult. It took a lot of risk. Also, she will be the only one of the gymnasts we're talking about today to dismount with a pikes full in. All of her landings were well done. The lunges were controlled. None of the landings merited deduction. The issues, I would say, would be not the most refinement, not the best choreography, not the best expression. And we'll get into it later in the video, but there was something very suspicious going on at this meet right in the very first rotation when you compare scores from different segments of this meet. This routine from Gutsu scored a 9.912. I would have scored it 9.950. I mentioned an optional, she dismounted with a double layout and she was a bit short and had to take a step forward. But with that deduction, she received the identical score that she did here with no deduction meriting passes. And obviously the difficulty of that dismount would have been taken into consideration, but it's still a little bit suspicious to me. Gutsu would then move over to vault. Again, she will be the only gymnast we're looking at today performing a double twisting Yurchenko. It had the same value as the full twisting Yurchenko. There, you can see that vault. There are definitely issues with it, which is why she ended up watering down and just doing the full twisting Yurchenko in Barcelona. She doesn't get the most push. She twists right off the horse, but she gets great distance. Again, the form also, there's a little bit of a leg separation and she lands low and takes a small hop. So for this vault, I would definitely mitigate in the difficulty factor. She did not have to perform a double twisting Yurchenko. Maybe she shouldn't have, but she did, and I think she should get bonus for that. I would score this vault 9.90. Her actual score was 9.875, meaning she counted 2 9.9s and 2 9.85s. Moving on to bars. Also, Gutsu not quite as clean as she would be the following year. You see that giant full to Ginger. Beautiful height on that Ginger. Here she'll do a Stalder on the low bar, which she would take out the following year. Beautiful swing. Gorgeous Tkachev. Setting up for her dismount. Giant, huge double layout. Amazing. That dismount is what coined her the painted bird of Odessa, if you listen to her anyway. And you can see why. Big, beautiful, gorgeous gymnastics. So much amplitude. I love to see it, and obviously I think the judges do too. Gutsu scored a 9.937 for this routine. I would score it a 9.95. So we're now in the third rotation in real time, And perhaps most interesting to look at was what she scored during optionals, which was a 9.975. You'll see a pattern where nearly every gymnast but one scores lower than they did in optionals for identical or better routines that they did in the all-around. Gutsu finishes up her meet on beam. As I mentioned in my last video, this is the mother of all beam routines. Layout, step out, mount. So much difficulty. Here she'll do a standing Shishava. Perfect. Again, she doesn't quite have the polish or refinement that she would the following year. She really cleaned up her form prior to Barcelona. 2 layout step outs. You can see a bit of flex feet there. Nice Sasson series. And here's her TikTok, split jump, Rolfova. And just as in balancing final, she had to make a bit of an adjustment. Not quite as severe, I would say. But this routine is just packed full of difficulty. There's her switch leap. Again, the front leg is low. The dismount is what makes the routine for me her trademark. 3 back handsprings down the length of the beam to a full in, but she was short and had to take a step forward. As I think I mentioned in just about every one of these judging videos I've done, that each judge has his or her individual preferences, and sometimes you're mitigating several different factors all at the same time, especially back in these older codes. So on one hand, you have her incredible difficulty, but you have to mitigate that against the less than ideal form and the 2 issues, one after the Rolfova and the dismount. When I put all that together, I come up with a 9.90. Her actual score was 9.912. And when I add up Gutsu's all-around score, I have her at 39.70. Her actual score, again, as I said at the top, was 39.636. And now we're going to move on to the 4th place finisher, Elizabeth Anna Betty Okino from the United States. And Betty would start on bars. This is giant blind, 4 giant to a Jaeger. Well done. Kipkas, good handstand. Tkachev, pretty good. This is a solid routine until we get to this dismount. A simple layout Barani. In fact, this dismount was initially a B. Bela Karolyi was able to do his politicking and get the value of this skill raised to a C. Now, we all know that Kathy Johnson-Clark is my guru, my mentor, and, I wish she was my mother. Oh, gosh. Could you imagine if Kathy Johnson-Clark had been my mother? My life would be entirely different. Just imagine having a mother who loved you in the first place, goals. But anyway, I don't think Kathy ever means to be shady, but one of my favorite ever moments in the history of commentary is when Kathy compared Betty's dismount to the one that we had seen prior in the first rotation from Tatiana Lysenko.
Now she'll set up for her dismount and watch this. It is a beauty. Interesting note, it's Betty Okino's dismount except with a double front half twist. Oh, and what a landing. That is such a difficult dismount, and she does it with such ease.
To Betty's credit, she would upgrade the following year into a release that would be named for her, but this dismount was just far too simple for this level of a competition. I know Betty said that the Karolyis like to play it safe. They wouldn't let her compete her double front at the big meets, but I'm taking that into consideration, not to mention the whole politicking that happened for her to be able to compete it in the first place. So I would score this a 9.90, and the judges also scored it a 9.90. Now moving over to Betty on beam. Again, this is going to feel like deja vu for the video that I just did. This is almost a carbon copy of that routine. Gorgeous mount showing her extreme flexibility. Beautiful. Right into the Sassone again, lacking amplitude and split, but beautiful posture. Her series, back handspring step out, 2 layout step outs. Perfect. From that angle, it's difficult to tell about her knee issues. But then she moves into that switch sweep into Sassone. Again, a lack of flexibility and split. Perfect double turn. Gorgeous. She did a triple turn in finals, but that double turn is still leagues above of what everybody else was doing. And then look at this gorgeous hold, moving into this planche. And then that move where she pushes it away. Love it. I enjoy how succinct this routine is. It's short, sweet, and to the point. 2 back handsprings to a double tuck. Not a lot of height and a step back. So I would say, aside from the form issues, the main deduction would be the step on the dismount. I love the double turn. I love the poise. I love the confidence. I love the flexibility and the handstand moves, the planche. So I would score this a 9.90, and her actual score was 9.912. And just to remind everybody, in case they might not know, when I'm judging this, I am restricted to judging in increments of 0.05, which means I can only score 9.8, 9.85, 9.9, 9.95, 10. I cannot give 9.962s or 9.912s or 9.825s. I'm just not able to do that, unfortunately. That happens when the scores from the 6 judges, the high and lower, dropped, and then the remaining 4 average. That's how you get those scores that are in between the 0.05 increments. It still cracks me up to this day. It never fails that I will see comments saying that I would have scored this a 9.825 or this should have gotten a 9.975. Those scores are not possible for individual judges to give. Betty on floor. Unfortunately, she suffers from a lack of difficulty here as well. Her mount is a double pike, and she has to step out of it. That was an uncontrolled lunge. But as a trained dancer, you can see that coming through, although she could have gotten more extension on that straddle jump.
Lovely line,
but she has lovely carriage. I really wish that the Karolyis allowed her to push further on terms of amplitude, although that was a gorgeous triple spin. Middle run, whip through to double full.
Yes, I find her elegant and
well
very,
done.
very pleasing to watch. Nice combination.
At the intro of my video, I mentioned the stranglehold that Karolyi had over U.S. gymnastics at this time. A gymnast like Betty, who originally trained in Illinois and moved to Karolyi's, she knew that she had to go to Bela in order to have a career, basically. It's much better nowadays in that respect. Dismount, tuck double back, good landing.
Well, splendid work there from Betty Okino, and I think...
So, very nice routine. The major issue was on that first pass. She's only doing a double pike, so I would expect to see it perfect. She's the only gymnast of the 5 who does not perform a full in or a double layout, so that really puts her behind the 8 ball in terms of difficulty, because I'm absolutely looking at difficulty when it comes to scoring. This is what would hurt Betty the following year when all of a sudden she dropped down from 4th in the world to, I think, 12th, despite not really there being much difference between the actual performances. So I would score this floor routine a 9.85. Her actual score was a 9.912, the same we just saw from Gutsu, who did about twice the level of difficulty. Betty finishes on vault. She'll do the compulsory Yurchenko layout full. Very nice block and a great landing. Good height, pretty good distance. And as we'll see in slow motion, the main deduction on this vault is going to be her landing position. It's a bit piked down, as you'll see. In situations such as these, when again we're limited to judging in 0.05 increments, you have to weigh, is it closer to a 9.9 or is it closer to a 9.95? I would probably say this is closer to a 9.95, so that is what I would score her. Her actual score was 9.937, meaning she counted 3 9.95s and a 9.9. So for Betty Okino's all around, I would have her at 39.6. Her actual score was 39.661. And now we're moving on to Christina Bontaș, who was 4th just off the podium at 89 Worlds, and she would win the bronze medal here. She, like Gutsu, started on floor. And in the evolution of Bontaș as a floor worker, this routine is a step up from her 89 routine, but is a shadow of her España Cani she would have in Barcelona. Stunning double layout mount though. And finals, she would put a full in that to share the gold medal with Oksana Chusevitna. Love that little pose before a middle run. Watch this. I love it. Round off back handspring. Whip full back handspring. Tuck double back. Very original.
Very nice combination there from Christina. A full in the middle that was long and accelerated in 2 flicks to the double back at the end.
Again, I don't like the American music. It almost seems to be pandering to the crowd, and they still gave her nooch, so it really didn't matter.
Bontaș, a very dedicated gymnast.
She also mounts with a full in, like we saw from Gutsu, although she does a tucked full in. Very nicely done. Lovely. Great routine. Great start to her meet.
Super gymnastics, and just look at that score, 9.
You can see she scored a 9.937, which is incredibly suspicious. Again, this is the first rotation, and if my suspicions are correct, what they're trying to do is ensure that Zmeskal can work up a healthy lead, so she is never in danger of losing this title. In optionals, Bontaș scored a 9.962 for a routine that was not any worse than that one. I would score this 9.95, and again, her actual score was 9.937. Christina Bontaș, her second vault, she had a fall on her first one. Good power, great height, good distance, just a little bit of an adjustment on the landing, the main deduction being that leg separation when she hits the table. I would score it 9.9. Her actual score was 9.887, meaning she counted 3 9.9s and 1 9.85. Moving on to bars for Christina. Good handstand. She does giant full to Tkachev, flat Tkachev. This was around the time where bars really, you started to see a separation between some of the old guard, like a Bontaș. There's a leg separation on that ginger. And the new guard, such as Gutsu. Just a relatively simple tuck double back dismount with a hop back. By the time that Barcelona rolled around, I think the judges were absolutely requiring more difficulty on bars to get into that 9.95 to 10.0 range. you'll see that Boginskaya would pretty much be, maxed out at a 9.9, as was Zmeskal, as was Bontaș. But in 91, it still was kind of going, wavering back and forth. We'll get into it with Boginskaya later, but she scored a 9.962 in optionals. For Bontaș, she scored a 9.912 in optionals, which was her score for this all-around routine as well. I went back and forth. It's very tricky. I think I would have this at 9.90. I think it's closer to 9.9 than 9.85. She did do 2 releases. She showed a full turn, unlike others. You have the leg separation, the relatively simple dismount, the flex feet. It's a lot to consider, but to me, again, it's closer to a 9.9 than a 9.85. And Christina finishes up on balance beam, back handspring mount. Sometimes she will connect it to this series, back handspring, layout, step out, layout, step out. Very well done. The thing I noticed about this routine is that she seemed to rush a little bit. It's that kind of Sassone into a gainer back handspring for Jamacro. And this is the last rotation, so she's going for a medal, back handspring, pike back. So I can definitely understand. Oh, that was a nice little. I didn't notice she did a little kick down to the beam. That skill I love, as I mentioned in my prior video. Again, here is her gymnastics series with interesting bent legs. And she has a little third jump to it even. But she's just moving a little quickly. I just wish she had slowed down a little bit. And connected the mount, because that would have given her more difficulty cred. Dismount series, round off, back handspring, tuck double back, small step back. Very nice routine. You can see she scored a 9.975. I would have this at 9.95. That 9.975 was enough, again, to get her onto the podium in the bronze medal position. I have her all-around score at 39.7, same as Gutsu. So at the moment, they would be tied for the lead. And Bontaș's official all-around score was 39.711. So that's very, very close to what I had her, considering what I'm restricted to judging in terms of 0.05 increments. And now it's time for the moment we've all been waiting for, this big showdown over the last 33 years between Svetlanaboginskaya and Zmeskal. Very, very hotly contested finish. And obviously we're going to go with Boginskaya first. She started on balance beam. Running punch front mount right into a double stag leap. She was a bit off on her front tuck, but she managed to save it very well. In fact, that'll be the story of this routine. Back handspring, 2 layout step outs. Again, slightly off, but is able to save it without meriting a deduction. Switch leap into Sassone. The switch leap didn't quite have the flexibility she usually does. So switch leap to tick-tock variation. Boginskaya creates the most beautiful pictures on beam. She has interesting poses. She is a very special gymnast. Here's her gainer layout step out. Again, just a little bit forward, but nothing I would deduct for. Beautiful split leap there. And then all that's left is her dismount, round off, tuck double back. She usually sticks it, but this time she has to take that step back. So there may have been a bit of, first rotation jitters for Boginskaya, because normally she's so consistent on sticking that dismount. So I would score this 9.90. Her actual score was 9.912. Moving on to floor. This routine is one that I think most of the collective gymternet did not know the music for approximately 30 years. But we discovered it a couple years ago. It's called The Path of Thunder. Gorgeous piked full in. Again, not quite as secure on that landing, and with many of Boginskaya's landings, she lands a little bit low, although that was not really a deduction in 1991. This is where she excels. The choreography, the dance, she sets a mood, she creates a moment, beautiful pictures, that kick. Here she stabs herself, which I love for some reason. And she took the criticism that her prior routines were not hard enough. Here's a 1.5 twist through a tuck double back. Beautifully done.
Generally, this is the area of her routine.
I just love this choreography. It tells a story. I'm not exactly sure what the story is, but I can tell it's telling one. And also her dismount is an upgrade. Double pike. A little low and just a step forward. That double turn with that attitude position, so cool. And fantastic ending pose.
A great competitor.
Love it. Monica had her hater cap on, like she was repping for Zmeskal hard, which makes me wonder about some things. First of all, I don't think she was ever the biggest fan of Boginskaya to begin with. She kind of always begrudgingly respected her.
Well, I do fancy her to win, but I don't think she's the best.
So she probably was quite happy to see her get dethroned. I would score this floor from Svetlana a 9.95. It's the best floor routine we're going to see of these 5. Absolutely stupendous. And her actual score was the same, 9.95. As in my 89 Worlds video, I'm typically just showing the best of the 2 vaults, and in the case of everybody in this final, their second vault was their better vault. Boginskaya actually stuck her first vault as well, but her second vault was even better. Watch this. Great push, and sticks it cold, no doubt. Good landing position as well. Let's just take one more look at this. The line is unparalleled. Gorgeous form. I would have this at a perfect 10, as did 2 of the judges. Her actual score was 9.962. So in real time, we're moving into the 4th rotation. Boginskaya knows that she is basically out of it. She has been in 2nd the entire competition. Kimzmeskal started on top and has stayed there with every rotation and every progressive overscore. So Boginskaya knows that basically but she still went on to do this bars routine. And as I mentioned with Bontaș, we were in a transitional time. Her lack of difficulty had been long pointed out, but it never really hurt her scores until this moment. Remember, in optional, she scored a 9.962. Giant full to Tkachev, very nice. But she only does that one same bar release. Again, everybody else in this final did 2 that we're going to see. But here is the ROV, the wrist, that toe on, toe off to double pike, which she lands straight up, good chest position, sticks it cold. Such a better routine than the one in optionals that scored a 9.962. She had a couple short handstands there. Her double pike was low, and she did not sell it like that. But her score goes down to 9.912. Why would Boginskaya's score go down 0.05 for a better routine? There were no extra difficulty requirements in the all-around that she failed to meet. And in 1991, 0.05 could mean the difference between, second place and fourth place, finishing off the podium. The scores were so tight, way too tight in my opinion. Like I said in my vault video about 89 Worlds, the men's technical committee did such a better job of separating the gymnasts than the WTC did. This score for me is a farce. You could argue that her routine from optionals never should have scored a 9.962. I could get behind that. And the difficulty wasn't there, but again, the ROV was. She does do a full turn, unlike others. She does a toe-on, toe-off to handstand, immediate dismount. That is cool. That is the O in the ROV. That is what we like to see. I would score this a 9.95. The 9.912 to me is a joke, honestly, especially once we move to Zmeskal's bars. I know we're not there yet, but... And again, I want to point out, when Boginskaya's score comes up, see her look of puzzlement. That's because she knows she got a 9.962 in optionals. The American crowd is booing, and there is the nod of resignment. She knows it. She's probably known it the entire meet, but that just solidified it. They stole the world title from her. I have Boginskaya's all around at 39.8. Her actual score was 39.736. So before we get to Zmeskal's routines, I would like to point out a couple of interesting observations. Zmeskal qualified into the all-around finals in 7th place behind Boginskaya, Bontaș, Gutsu, Miller, Lysienka, and Onodi. Since the introduction of new life rules in 1989, she is the only world all-around champion who would not have won under old life rules, but did not have a break during the optional portion. Also, to this point, Zmeskal had scored the only 10 of these world championships for her optional vault, a vault that I don't really think was a 10, but go off sis. And I'm not sure how the draw was decided, but she is suspiciously the only gymnast to compete in Olympic order, which is definitely an advantage. So she is getting started on vault. She does a layout Yurchenko full. Good landing. I want to take a look at this in slow motion. So the body position is pretty good. It could be a little bit better. She gets pretty good push. There's a bit of a leg separation. She does her trademark flare, but it's kind of arched. She doesn't stay as stretched as I would like. So I would score this a 9.95. Her actual score was 9.962. Which would give her the lead after the first rotation, and she would never lose it. As with Boginskaya, Zmeskal's weakest event is absolutely bars, but they're weak events for each gymnast in different ways. What you'll notice with Kim is a lot of muscling, kips, no variation. She does no full turns in this. That was just a Ginger with a leg separation, and then she moves up into a flat Tkachev, short of handstands, nice high double pike, but then you'll see that college stick. She doesn't really hold that stick. Now, I've been told that under this code of points for doing that Ginger with a leg separation to overshoot, she got 2 or 3 tenths of her originality bonus, which, how was that even original? Things that make you go, So, whereas bars was Boginskaya's weakest event because she didn't quite have the difficulty, I would say bars was Zmeskal's weakest event because she didn't have the ability. I have gone back and forth. I didn't want to be a petty bitch, so I went ahead and scored this a 9.9, although I was legitimately considering scoring it a 9.85. Her actual score is a 9.937, which is the same score that both Gutsu and Lysianka received during this all-around competition. Both of them far, far, far superior bars workers. You'll see them in event finals on uneven bars. Kim Zmeskal was not in bars finals. So fishy stuff is starting to happen. I could understand the vault, the 9962 on vault. I could give that to her. But this bar score is very suspicious to me. I mentioned before about referencing the optional scores. Zmeskal did a better bars routine in optionals, but scored lower at 9.912. I think her handstands were definitely better in her optionals routine. She did pretty much the same college stick, same leg separation on the ginger, same, muscled kips, whatever, but I feel that was a more accurate representation of what that routine should score. Kim, in the third rotation, comfortably in the lead. All she just needs to do is not have a disaster, and they're going to give her this all-around title. I think the writing is on the wall. Bela politicked his ass off. I will give him that. Kim moves into this reverse planche. She actually has quite a nice presence on beam. I think Marta did a pretty good job with the choreography. There's front handspring, immediate Sassone. Compulsory back handspring to 2 layouts. Not the most amplitude, but pretty well done. I like the knee kicks after it. Good full turn. She does a good job of working the entire beam, fulfilling the requirements. Karolyis were pretty good at ensuring they did what it took to get the scores. Switch sleep. I think it's doubtful either one of those hit 180. She moves into the same solo gym element that Boginskaya did. Gainer layout. See that waiver? Straddle jump. I mean, I'm not a Zmeskal hater. Or I try not to be. I loved that she doesn't pause going right into that round off tuck double back, but that is a hot back. So let's play a guessing game. You saw Boginskaya's beam prior to this with very, very, very similar deductions. What do you think Kim scored? If you remember, Boginskaya scored a 9.912. Maybe you're thinking, also 9.912 or maybe 9.925, but no, the judges gave 0 at this point. They threw a 9.962 for this routine. It's almost like they didn't care who knew at this point. I have this at 9.90. That is what I think it actually deserved and merited. We have the waiver on the gainer layout step out, the hop back on the dismount, and it's not like she was doing revolutionary difficulty to mitigate either of those deductions. And again, just for reference, Zmeskal's beam score during optionals was a 9.95. So you'll notice that aside from vault, she goes up on every single score from optionals. Zmeskal moved on to floor. She only needed a 9.9 for the victory, meaning I think they would have done a Zabo, and had she gone out of bounds, they still would have given her the score. Piked full in, pretty well controlled. I wouldn't deduct for it. Now, this in the mood routine is about 10 times better than the rock around the clock aberration that she had in Barcelona. It plays to her strengths so much better. She actually seems to like this music, where that night, I mean, nobody could like that nightmarish rock around the clock. I don't blame her. Here is what she's famous for: 3 whip backs to tuck double back. Well done.
Again landed sensationally well, and the crowd now roaring her on.
Nice straddle jump, straddle half. Like, this routine actually genuinely makes me smile. I really like it. This is maybe Požár is best. But unlike Gutsu and Bontaș, she does not do the most difficult dismount, just a tuck double back, which I think hurts her ceiling as far as scoring goes. So very, very good routine. I would have this actually at a 995, which was the same that I gave both Gutsu and Bontaș, despite them having more difficulty, because it was a moment. Monica is like, Cold War times are here again. She seems way too happy about the Soviets losing, I must say. Now, I'm surprised they just didn't flat give her a 10, but she only gets a 9.987, which means that one judge held their ground and didn't want it to be a complete farce. Although, let's be honest, it had already been a farce once she got her bar score, so why even try at that point, girl? Just go with the house, as they say in Big Brother. Just give her the 10. Let her end her fantasy with a 10. So I have Zmeskal at 39.7. Her actual score was 39.848, which I think we all know is bullshit. So this is now my third video about 91 Worlds. I oft complain about this meet. I think it was very collusive, suspicious. Like, I think it was corrupt. It's difficult to trust any of the results at this meet, really, except maybe Kim Gwang-suk on bars. From 6th after optionals to all of a sudden winning the all-around by over 1/10 of a point. In fact, the 89 to 92 code, although it has some of my favorite gymnastics, had some of the most bunched up and worst scoring. Zmeskal winning this meet by over 1/10 may be the largest margin of victory, or one of them, the entire quadrennium, which is absolutely preposterous to me and anybody with eyes. I honestly didn't think I was going to get this worked up, but it's just not right. It's not fair. I'm not happy, obviously, and I think Svetlanaboginskaya should file a lawsuit against FIG. Statute of limitations be damned, and I think she should set up a GoFundMe as well. I will donate $50. So my results, obviously, I have Boginskaya first, and I have a three-way tie for silver between Zmeskal, Bontaș, and Gutsu. Sometimes I'll rank ties, but that would leave somebody off the podium, so I'll just keep it as a three-way tie for silver. It was very, very close, incredibly close meet. All 5 gymnasts competed very, very well, I think. Then you move down to Miller in 6th and Milosevic in 7th, and ironically, Gutsu 5th, Miller 6th, Milosevic 7th would turn around in Barcelona to Gutsu 1st, Miller 2nd, and Milosevic 3rd. Kind of a passing of the torch. I would be curious to see what the judges had done had Miller hit, but it seems that Zmeskal was already the favored child, despite coming into the all-around finals behind Miller as the second American. This shows that Karolyi had already put the puzzle pieces in place. Like, the fix was in. I don't know how much more obvious I can make it. I hope you see this. I hope people don't think I'm crazy. I mean, just look at the big picture. You can see Bela Karolyi working his magic for his pupil to win this. So, as always, I am so curious, especially for this video, to hear what you guys think. Please, hit up my comment section. Let's really debate this, because like I said, this is possibly the most contentious result in the history of women's artistic gymnastics. If you like the video, please hit that thumbs up. I have Patreon, buy me a coffee. I'll see all you guys in my next one. Take care. Do skóra. Bye, loves.